Today I want to share DORA Metrics. DORA stands for DevOps Research and Assessment Metrics. Why I want to discuss about DORA Metrics. In software professional, we had a lot of metrics. We had length of line of control. We, first metric we had is how many lines of code you have in your project. Lot of time the metrics in software were controversial. We used to it is matter of opinion whether those metrics were useful at all. I used to be a consultant when I started my career. What does that mean is I used to attend a lot of interviews. And during interviews, I people used to ask me questions. How many lines of control, how many lines of code you have written? And I always cringed. How many line of codes that you have written? Huge line of code matters. Even 15, 20 years back, the good practice was you write small codes. Means if you can get something done by 2000 line of code versus 300 lines of code, 300 lines of code was better. Another question I was asked, how many web pages you have written? Again, that's not a good number. Means I could have written 50 web pages and they could be all same master pages where I was just adding records to the database, updating, deleting, inserting, performing simple correct functions. Another question I used to, people used to ask me, how many number of tables you have in your database? Again, I could have 50 tables with just name and description. That doesn't tell anything about my designing skills, how many number of tables I had. So in the software industry, the software metrics were very subjective. You couldn't get any objective metrics. It was 10, 15 years back, there were no DevOps, no what he was running, continuous build and gathering metrics. Very, let me take back. I mean, it was not a common practice. Very few people were doing that. So I always wish there was a way that non-technical management they can get some metrics about a team and find out how that team was doing. A lot of time they were misreporting. Teams were doing different things and reporting very good numbers to the management. I was watching a I was watching a TV series in which a manager was managing team of salespeople. He has to let some people go. He was trying to find out who are his top performers. And at first, they thought the top performer was the guy who's always on the phone making sales call versus a guy who was taking a lot of breaks. So the assistant manager recommended to manager that he should fire based on the perception. Manager said he would not do that. He will do based on the numbers. He ran a report of sales and he was shocked to see that the guy who was taking breaks, he was the best performer, and the guy who was on the phone, he was the worst performer. Then they started hearing his recording. A lot of time, the people who are in sales they record phone calls so that can they can train other people. So what they found out, that guy whom they thought was making sales calls all the time, most of the time he was talking to his girlfriend. So I wished in software industry we had some those kind of metrics where you could find out who are your top performers. So here comes the DORA matrix. DORA matrix changed that. DORA matrix uh, was developed by DevOps research and assessment team. So here some three main people came together. They were from DevOps industry. They were they were not happy the way DevOps was working. DevOps was working in silos. DevOps was working and DevOps and developers were at loggerheads. They were not working as a team. So they decided to find out some metrics to find out how to do a how to come up with some great practices, how to come up some metrics which can find out who are the high performers in the software industry. They interviewed 26,000 people and did research over 6 months. They collected data from 26,000 professionals and they ran a lot of statistical analysis, machine learning, and they came up with numbers that correlates with high performers. One key finding they came was that speed doesn't come at the cost of quality. The convention wisdom was like if you have to have soft quality software products, you need to have good time of coming up the requirement, coding. It has to go multiple cycles of testing before you can push it to production. And the first thing was the uh, first myth they busted was speed doesn't come at the cost of quality. Another great thing they gave us, they came up with four DORA metrics. I will go into details a little bit later. The first was what is your deployment frequency? How often you are pushing products to the production? What second is lead time for changes. What time it takes for your code to go from source safe or GitHub to production? And third metric was mean time to restore. How much, if your services are down, if your application is down, how much time it takes to restore your service. And fourth is change failure. Whether when you're pushing your product to production, is it causing failure? Is it, do you have to push hard fixes? Uh, do you have to roll back your changes? So that was change failure rate. So deployment and lead time are lead time. Uh, these are like to calculate how often you are pushing changes, and mean time and change mean time to restore and change failure rate is to make sure that you are following good processes, you are not cutting corners at the quality and pushing a buggy software to production. So the best thing about this DORA metrics was they came with a pay categories. These are quantitative metrics. They came up uh, different categories of performers. They found out the elite performers, the teams. They deploy multiple applications per day. Their lead time, the time when they make changes, push changes to source safe and deploy to production is less than 1 hour. Mean time to restore is less than 1 hour. Change failure rate is under 15%. Low performers, they came up, they deploy once per month or less. Lead time is between 1 to 6 months. Um, Mean time to restore services is over a week. Change failure rate is 60% to 75%. And they have given us this metric. Again, here on the left side, you see the different metrics. And then you see whether you are elite team or high performer, medium or low. Deployment, if you're doing multiple deployments per day, deployments, when we say, we are talking about features, enhancements, not hot fixes. So high people once per week or once per month. Medium, they do between once per month, 1 month and 6 months, and low they do after 6 months. Lead time to changes, they have categories. Elite to less than 1 hour, high performers between 1 day and 1 week, and medium between 1 month and 6 months, more than 6 months. Time to restore service, less than 1 hour for elite, less than 1 day high, between 1 day and 1 week for medium, and more than 6 months. Change failure rate, high elite is 0 to 15%. And it seems he has put up the range here. You can pick up your own range for calculating high, medium, and low. Here they are giving you that flexibility. So let's go into each metric into depth. First thing is deployment frequency. How often team deploy code to production? Which makes sense to me. If you're deploying code very frequently, that means you have a continuous deploy integration and deployment in place. You have written very good automated unit test, integration test, and acceptance test. So your regression time is very, very low. And this is one very good your application is following good principles, you are following domain driven design, you're making sure you are using dependency injection, you have layered architecture. So you have to follow a very, very good engineering practices if you are going to deploy, let's say, multiple times in a day. Lead time changes, I think again it's related to deployment changes. The moment you enter the code, how much time it takes for you to push that code to production. Again, if your lead time is 1 hour, you are following very good practices. You have continuous integration and continuous deployment. You have a great pipelines. You are writing your unit test, integration test, and acceptance test. You have automated your testing effort. You have very less manual efforts required. Mean time to restore, or how much time it takes to restore your application. Again, this is it's very quick for you to restore your application, that means you have implemented very good logging. Your exception handling is great. You are able to go through your log and find out exceptions, where it happened, what are the causes. Uh, so you are following very good practices of handling exceptions, logging that, so that and your code quality is good, that there are no memory leaks. uh, application, your test suite is good to make sure that you have not broken things. How do you calculate mean time to restore? Let's say you have two incident. Is total downtime from failure plus number of incidents. Let's say you had two incidents. First incident was 30 minutes downtime. Second incident happened and you have 60 minutes downtime. So mean time to restore is you add up those number 90 and you divide by number of incidents, that's 2. The mean time is 45 minutes. Change failure rate. Change failure rate is percentage of deployment that causes failure in production. So if you are pushing that software which is causing problems in the production, that means there are some problems in your development cycle. You're not testing it properly. Your regression test is not good. So how do you improve your change failure rate? You adopt thorough testing. Make sure your testing is automated. If something happens, you go through your automated test and see what is failing. You do master, you do RCAs and root cause analysis, and make sure that failure doesn't happen in the future. So that's how you calculate change failure rate. Number of failed changes plus total number of changes multiplied by 100. I need to fix this 10, I need to fix this 10 number. So let's say a team made 50 deployments and for these deployments were resulted in failure. So your change failure rate is 4 divided by 50 into 100, 8%. For elite teams, this number should be less than 15%. So what are the real world benefits of DORA metrics? Improved delivery speed. You are pushing a lot of builds. Your system is more reliable. Because you are making sure change failure rate is down, mean time restore is less, and competitive advantages. You are able to move a lot of features to the production. So as let's go review our this once more. We have gone through all these four metrics, and we can see for this matrix which number you come in elite, high, medium, or low. This way, management using if management is tracking these metrics, they can find out which is the high elite teams, which are the high performance team. So again, I repeat, if you're delivering multiple times in a day, you're elite. Once per week or once per month, you're high. And so this metric will help you to set up your goals for your organization. You can decide whether you want to be high performance team or medium performance team. A lot of time, like if you in your industry, it may not make sense to do multiple deployments per day. When it comes to Google, they do multiple deployments per day. SpaceX, I know SpaceX, there's a famous stories. They have such a great integration. They have such great automated testing. They are able to update the software within like couple of minutes. A lot of time they, while the rocket is flying, they pushes their hot fixes to the rocket when rocket is flying, whereas SpaceX does that, whereas the NASA takes anywhere from 2 weeks to months if they have to push some software hot fixes to their rocket. So how do you implement DORA metrics? So that's what you have to decide your goals. You have to set up your monitoring tools, which are calculating this metrics, and you continuously review and analyze results, and you take iterative improvements based on your data. So what are the different tools if your ecosystem is Azure? So Azure pipelines you can use to for CI/CD, continuous integration and deployment. Azure repos you can use to find out what the time that software is being checked in repos and go to production. Azure monitors you set up to find out what are the outrages, what are the time to restored services, application insights you use for logging information. And if some exception happened, find out the details. DevOps dashboards, you can set up these metrics on your DevOps dashboards. DevOps analytics gives you a lot of insights about deployment frequencies and all those numbers. And also Azure Log Analytics you can use to derive information from drive information from these metrics. So DORA metrics are powerful way to measure and improve DevOps performance. By tracking deployment frequency, lead time for changes, mean time to restore, and change failure rate, you can improve your speed and stability, respond more effectively to customer speeds, and make continuous improvements in software delivery processes. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, like it and share it and subscribe to my channel. Also connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, especially LinkedIn. If you like small summaries of the video, I will be posting a lot of small summaries of the video on LinkedIn. Thanks again for watching.